controller setup for Elit Dangerous. So this is kind of how it's going to work. Okay, so we have Elit Dangerous here. Okay, so one of the first things you want to do, like usual, is go to the game. It'll pop up. Okay. Guess it's being a pain. So if anything, go to your Steam. You're going to go to Settings. Go to Controller. Make sure your Rumble's on if you use it. Only use Nintendo layout unless you're using a Nintendo controller. If not, keep it off, because it will kind of switch some of the buttons around. Universal glyphs, you can kind of keep that off, because if you put it on, it kind of removes, let's say for example, if a game already has a control scheme to it, okay, it'll have like A, B, and stuff like that, right bumper and all that other junk. So if anything, it would change these buttons to basically either a circle prompt or a left and up, down, right prompt for, like, for example, the D-pad one, which kind of makes it a little complicated. So it'll keep the A and B like you see here in the Xbox menu and stuff like that. So if you want to change that, it'll change it to something a little bit more universal, which will kind of say Steam, or it'll say like wouldn't have the green or the thing would just say like A or B or X or square, or, give it some number. So, it kind of helps with that. And also, okay, so with the external gamepad, the guide button focuses on Steam. So basically what that means is, basically, if, you come up here to whatever game that you go to or whatever, if it has a guide button layout that focuses mainly for Steam, then that's what it will use. Enable Steam input for Xbox controllers. That is something you also want to put on. You would want to put on the enable in games without support. Okay, make sure that if you have a pro controller, make sure you turn that on. Any generic controller, always make sure you turn that on. Big picture mode, it's kind of up to you. I use big picture mode because it kind of works a little bit more like a console. And the idle enable the guide button chords for the controller is also something you'd want to put on. So other than that, it's just the game idle, gamepad shutdown, timeout. Just put it on never. Okay, and that's really all you got to worry about when it comes to those controller settings. Okay, so from here we'll back out. Let's say, for example, we're taking Elit Dangerous. Go to the control button. You're going to see here where it says official layout for Elit Dangerous. Official Elit Dangerous bindings. You would either click on that, or click on gamepad or something like that. You can always find these community ones. Okay, and stuff like that. So as you can tell, that that's their whole thing right there. That's the actual binding thing. So make sure that's on there. Or you can just switch it to there's a straight gamepad, for example. Hit apply. Because it uses template gamepad or whatever, because that's the whole thing. Make sure this is not disabled. You can, for example, go back, load Elit Dangerous. Log in with Steam or whatever you got. Hit play game. And then when you get in, it should work by the gamepad. Keyword is should if it doesn't. So one of the first things you want to check, and see if your D-pad works. So of course my D-pad works. My A button works, so we go back and forth, right? Okay, so, go to controls. One of the controls we're going to check is, control pad for, default, which is kind of what you want for this. So we're going to go back. We're going to go to ship controls. I have them on custom because the reason why that is I changed a few flight instructions in here. So for example, what I changed was, I believe, like for example, where some of the miscellaneous buttons are for like the cooling and ship lights and stuff like that. So I also have them, numbered on, these things right here, so it's a little bit more better for me to use for number pads and whatnot. Night vision selections and stuff like that. It makes it easier for me to use my ship. Okay, jettison cargoes and stuff like that is all still the same. I left those relative to, the basic controls. So this is, kind of how you fix some of this stuff is you'd come in here and select these things. Okay, so basically how it looks is, you can kind of manipulate this any way you want. These are all secondary, this is all primary. Okay, so like any other mapping instruction, this is primary, this is secondary, so this is what it'll fall back to, this is what it'll mainly accept. Okay, so, basically it's on, it's kind of on that. All it really is a few button selections and stuff like that, and understanding the mapping of the controller and, what you want it to do and what you want it to target. So this is where it can get a little complicated for some people, so my opinion is don't try to mess around too much with that. Just try to keep it basic. So for example, accelerate is right trigger, decelerate is left trigger, kind of the same way as a car would be, stuff like that. So for example, if you're on foot, you come here, you make it custom. The reason why you make it custom, okay, is because basically it's using the custom settings from the Steam template. One of the things I showed in the earlier video was the guide it's trying to use for the cord. Okay, so basically when it sends the output for the controller, it's going to try to match up whatever the corresponding connection may be for the keyboard as a default. That's what the secondary binding's for. Okay, so for example, if you press, for example, down and B, it's going to basically use it as a keyboard function. Okay, so that's what a lot of people don't understand. Alright, that when they hit these kind of features and stuff like that. So a lot of these features, when you go and activate it through Steam, will be activated through Steam depending on which layout you perform. Okay, so every basic layout is a WASD with a mouse. That's its basic layout. You can get a little bit more precision and stuff like that based upon the controller type you use. Okay, so for example, touchpads, stuff like that will use more precision. If it has a 6-axis, it even comes with those. Okay, so hence the whole point, it can get a little bit, confusing with those templates. And the templates you can also change and layer and stuff like that to each type controller function or button use. Same way as kind of like you would in this, you would have a certain key mapping that would show the corresponding button to the controller. Okay, so for example, alright, if I'm on foot and I want to use my right trigger, so for example, I want to shoot. Okay, so I'm going to look for example, the shoot button. Because I know my friend was having an issue with that, and you're going to make sure that the fire weapon or the used tool is matched up to the right trigger. Okay, so anytime, you want to use it or anything else like that, it has to be the adjustment for this. So, for example, we're just going to, take this setting, and we're just going to go continue with what I was doing earlier real quick, just to, prove my point and my point of concept. So anything I should do, now that it's, via the gamepad or whatever, should just be via the gamepad. It should not really have any other correspondence or instructions that it should give you on the guide. It should show up as X, A, B, not E, F, G, or whatever the case may be. We'll just come here, we'll pick up a quick mission. Let me change that sound real quick so it comes through my headphones. See, only getting a lot of echo back from the game. As you can see, it comes up as X. I should be able to do this. I can, so that comes up as that. So I can select it with A as per usual, like any other controller. I'm going to select the nearest planet. Scroll down like any other controller. Select it with A like any other controller. Oh, wrong thing. Did not read. place myself. Run still works the same. This will take a minute. Change the words like the military. Smoke me if you got them.
Frameshift drive charging. 4, 3, 2, 1. Engage. Engaged.
So here we are on the ground. see, I'll test out my guns. As you can see, the right trigger works, reload works, crouch works, left bumper works, right bumper works, changing weapons work, A works. As you can see, everything works. No real problems. So there's Elit Dangerous. So that's how I do my setup for Elit Dangerous. If y'all have any other questions, please send me a line. Those of you who know me, you know that I can be reached on Discord.